All right, guys, guess what? I messed up. I admit it. It went wrong. So if you tuned into my live draft, you might have noticed something. There was like no audio. But guess what? I'm going to do something special for you guys. I'm going to do a recap of the draft so you could kind of get into my thinking, my logic before making some of these selections. And let me know what you think. Also, guys, I got another draft coming up September 4th, which is a Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I promise this time there'll be audio, so make sure you check that out.
Sports Libs, where we rap sports analysis.
So I was having initial trouble getting into my draft, actually, and I got to the draft late. And when it was time for me to pick, I saw that they had auto-drafted me Antonio Brown, which I was kind of upset about. I wanted to go Barkley with my pick, and then turn around and go Devontae Adams in the second round. So it kind of derailed my whole draft. But things ended up working out pretty well, as you'll see here in the second round. Instead of, I had to pick a running back, and Dalvin Cook is somebody that I was really high on. So that ended up working out well. I didn't have to think twice about that. So instead of going Barkley and Adams, I ended up with Brown and Dalvin Cook, which is not a bad consolation prize at all. And in the third round, here, it got a little more trickier. I was just gonna go best available. That's something that I don't try to. I'm not one of those people that are stubborn, saying, "Oh, I'm gonna go running back and then receiver and then running back." No, I'm gonna pick the best available. And this particular draft, I felt like the running back position was really deep. So sometimes I would, focus on the running back, but I knew there was some quality guys I could get later on, and that's why I was really even more so going with that best available mentality. And I was hoping that a guy like Mike Evans would slip here, because I saw that he started slipping. I think he's a second round talent with some, definitely wide receiver one upside. And that's exactly what happened in round 3. I was able to get my guy. Actually, I originally wanted Drake. Let me rephrase that. I originally wanted Drake, but since Drake was not available and Mike Evans slipped, I wasn't expecting Mike Evans to be there. I ended up going with Mike Evans in the third round. So yeah, those were the guys I was looking at. Basically, Kenyon Drake. Oh, McKinnon was another guy. So I probably would have went with McKinnon in the third round, had Mike Evans not slipped to me, because I was not expecting Mike Evans to be there in the third round. That was pretty crazy. And you can see here that I was kind of like torn between Evans and McKinnon, and I went right down to the wire between those guys. But ultimately, I felt like there was still some quality backs that I could get later on. But yeah, look at that. 8 seconds, 5 seconds, I took Mike Evans. And it worked out good. It worked out good because then later on, as it turns out, you'll see here momentarily, I was still able to get the other guy that I was looking at, which was Jerick McKinnon. I don't know how he fell to the fourth round, but that's exactly what happened. And you can see here that I was looking at him, just nervous, just hoping that he would slip, because most people have him even over Drake. So the fact that I was able to get him around later and still get Mike Evans. So I basically got two. You can see how happy I was once they didn't get McKinnon. I was able to get 2 wide receiver ones, and then McKinnon has some RB1 upside. The only thing I worry about McKinnon is his injuries. He's been kind of dinged up. He's a speed guy, already has that calf strain, but seems like he's going to be ready to go week 1. So I'm happy to have him on my team. And then later on in the draft, I definitely get some depth at the running back position, even to the point where I haven't even picked up Breida. It's not enough roster spots. I do want to add Breida at some point. Hopefully nobody picks him up before then, but as you'll see later on in the draft, I have a lot of depth at the running back position. So here we're going into round 5. This is where you start separating the men from the boys. A lot of big names start coming off the board: Golden Tate, Russell Wilson, Sean McCoy, as you can see. But let's see here. Marquise Goodwin, I felt, was the best talent available. Some people think I might have selected him a little high over guys like Doug Baldwin, Demaryius Thomas, and so forth. But in my opinion, I felt he was the best available player, and that's why I went with Marquise Goodwin in round 5. And there was still a lot of running backs on the board, so I knew that a lot of these guys that I would have been looking at normally, like Tariq Cohen, Duke Johnson, I knew there was some big names still ahead that people were going to pick up, where I could get some of these guys that I really like, that people are kind of down on right now because of the situation. Jordan Howard, they said, is going to be playing on third down. Then you got Duke Johnson with all these new weapons. A lot of people are down on him. So I knew there was a possibility these guys could slip. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. So here in round 6, because the running back position was so deep, I usually don't select the tight end this high, but I love Trey Burton. And tight end is one of those positions. There's not a lot of elite tight ends. So you see me clapping there. I felt like I got a top 5 tight end in the 6th round, and there was still plenty of depth at running back. I addressed the receivers. I already had my top 3 receiver. This is a 3 wide receiver league, so I didn't really need to go receiver. There was still a bunch of running backs left, and that's why I felt like Trey Burton was the pick. I don't think he would have been around in the 7th round, and now I'm really good in at a position where not so many people have elite players. So heading into round 7 now is where I go back to the running back position, and I start stacking up and creating some depth. So far my running backs are Dalvin Cook and Jerick McKinnon. Now what I like to do is try to create a 3-headed monster. Now Sony Michel, for me, he has RB1 potential. If he goes into that Dion Lewis role, and he's actually more talented than Lewis. I mean, for the Patriots to use a first rounder on a running back, that says a lot. And I knew with the way my team was shaping up, if Sony Michel needed some time to get acclimated, that he would, that I could bench him, I could stash him. My team was deep enough, and there was still a lot of quality running backs where I can, later on put him in. But you see me looking up some information here on Antonio Brown. I was a little nervous about him. Now here I'm eyeing Robbie Anderson because it's the 8th round. Robbie Anderson, I probably had like a 7th round grade on him. He was somebody I was targeting. But Sony Michel, I just love the upside. I love, those fast pass catching backs with that, game breaking potential. So I couldn't pass up on him. It was way too juicy. And I was, pretty good at wide receiver, having those top 3 guys with Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Marquise Goodwin. I felt good there. And then 7th round or 8th round, you could see I'm kind of nervous, hoping nobody takes Anderson here because I really wanted him. Him and Marquise Goodwin are 2 guys that I'll be targeting in all my drafts because I feel like they got so much value where they're going. Like they have that, high wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 upside. And lo and behold, boom, like the draft, with the exception of Antonio Brown, who I wouldn't have selected with my 6th pick, everything was just going perfectly for me. So here we're moving quite along here. It's round 9. Again, I'm pretty stacked at every position so far. I'm really deep at wide receiver. I have like 4 wide receiver 1s / wide receiver 2s. I've got 2 potential RB1s, and then, Sony Michel, another potential RB1. At least, once it gets later on in the year, I think he's going to really come on. So now I'm just looking to, quarterback is really, nobody's been selecting quarterbacks. You saw Drew Brees just got taken in the 9th round. So I knew I could sit there, and I recommend you guys do too. There's some really good quarterbacks that are even being undrafted in a lot of leagues. So at this point, I'm just trying to go with best available, and I think here is where I select Tariq Cohen. You see me nervous there because I know I really want. At this point in round nine, actually, it was between Tariq Cohen and Duke Johnson. So I'm really kind of torn because I think both players. I mean, Duke Johnson was the 11th most had the 11th most points at the running back position last year. But I had to go with Cohen. I had a man crush. He's been like my man crush this whole off season. I know, he slipped because of the news of Howard, but I just love Cohen. You see me really contemplating that. But at the end of the day, I think I still had a shot at Duke Johnson, but not sure Tariq Cohen would have been there in round 10 because as it is, round 9 is pretty low for Tariq Cohen. And actually, for my 12-man league, I'll probably be drafting him as early as round 5 because I do really like Cohen. Despite I don't care what coaches say, I go by my gut and what I've seen. And he was almost an RB2 last year with a bad offensive team. So I could only imagine. I think being a running back to a low RB2 is basically his floor for Tariq Cohen. So moving quite along, we're in round 10, and this is where I really do, this is where I show out because I think for the first couple rounds, everybody's pretty much even, but it's those managers that can draft good late and take those potential, stud guys, which is here I'm kind of torn between Isaiah Crowell. A lot of people are down on Crowell. He slipped quite a few rounds even after round 10 where I was considering him because I think, Powell hasn't shown anything. Elijah McGuire is injured. I think Crowell is going to really provide people some value. So I was a little torn between him and Duke. But as you'll see here shortly, I ended up drafting Duke Johnson and very happy with those last 2 picks, getting Cohen. Both of those guys that I was considering in the 9th round, I ended up getting both of them. Drafting now Duke Johnson in the 10th round, which is insane. He's another guy that I would probably consider in the 5th or 6th round in my 12-team league. So the fact I'm getting 5th round quality players that I was targeting in that area in the 10th round, 5 rounds later, that's pretty insane. So I'm definitely happy about that. And then round 11, this is where, you may want to start looking at the quarterback position. This draft was very unique. I was surprised how many people really passed up on some quarterbacks, which is the smart thing to do. I mean, there's leagues where Derek Carr is going off undrafted, and for me, he's going to be a quarterback 1. I really like Derek Carr's potential. I think he has a soft schedule. With Gruden calling the plays, I think Derek Carr is definitely a guy. Remember, Derek Carr was an MVP candidate just 2 years ago, guys. And he was playing last year injured. Jack Del Rio is not exactly an offensive genius. So I do expect a bounce back year for Carr. They also added Jordy Nelson, a couple nice running backs. No, stud running back. Marshawn Lynch is okay. But I think with the complementary of backs, Doug Martin, some of these other guys, they'll be okay there. See, my cousin ended up getting Patrick Mahomes in the 11th round. That was somebody I was targeting. A little disappointed, but as who did I get the 11th round? Where did I go here? I know. I think I got Corey Clement here. Corey Clement is another guy. I think Corey Clement has Kamara type potential. I don't know if he'll be a top 3 back, but kind of like that same situation where he's in an explosive, potent offense. He's going to be the 3rd down pass catching back. I'm a little concerned with Sproles because the coaches just love that guy. But, I mean, this guy has shown tremendous talent. He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Ajayi's already injured, which doesn't really affect Clement that much because I don't think he's going to be an early down back. Maybe. I don't know because they don't have a lot of depth at that position. But either way, Clement could potentially be a RB2, definitely a consistent flex. And I got players now that I can rotate as part of my 3-headed monster. McKinnon and Cook are going to be my 1-2, but then you got Cohen, Duke Johnson, and Clement. I could rotate that at that position. Actually, I really like Clement week one. He'll probably be in my week one Sports Libs because Atlanta Falcons, they're really bad against pass catching backs. At least they have been the past few years. So Clement can even, be a starter week one as a flex. I think he's an excellent flex um, candidate. I don't even know if Ajayi's going to play week one. We know Wentz is probably not. So love Clement week one, Thursday night. I'll get to get a preview of one of the players I drafted right off the bat. Now we're going into round 12. At this point, Mahomes got taken. Kirk Cousins, I mean, he's a top 5 quarterback for me. He's actually higher in my rankings than even Mahomes, even though there's certain players like Tariq Cohen, Patrick Mahomes, I just had man crushes on. But, I mean, Kirk Cousins, round 12, I was ecstatic that he was there. Really safe player. Minnesota's got a load of weapons. And, really happy I got Cousins. Now, once we get into round 13, this is just where you're taking flyers. Surprisingly, there was some good players still available. I mean, Kittle got picked in round 13. Thought that was an excellent pick by my brother, actually, even though he had already Ingram and O.J. Howard. Both players were big reaches. You got Tyler Lockett going in the 13th round, who I think has tremendous potential. Wide receiver 3 potential. DJ Moore. So a lot of good picks I saw here from a lot of managers in the 13th round. And I was really happy with my 13th round pick. I believe I go here, Eckler. There was certain guys I was targeting. Probably all my teams are going to have Corey Clement, Tariq Cohen, Marquise Goodwin, Robbie Anderson, Eckler, because these are guys that maybe people are looking at, but they don't value as much as I do, because I believe these guys have breakout potential and can be, if something were to happen to Melvin Gordon, oh my God, Austin Eckler, and he already has standalone flex appeal by himself. So to be able to get this guy in the 13th round, and that was definitely a great value at that point in the draft. As you can see me scrolling through everything, I ended up going. I looked at Crowell again. It's funny, I was looking at Crowell as early as round, 10, I think? And then I ended up passing him up in round 13 for Eckler. Or no, actually, I went D.D. Westbrook. Sorry. So I went D.D. Westbrook here. I thought this was Eckler time, but, I mean, Eckler wouldn't have been a bad decision. I think I went Eckler the next round. But D.D. Westbrook, he's another guy. Tremendous talent for round 13 in a position that's kind of scarce, especially if you're looking at a league that has 3 wide receivers. To get D.D. as my 5th receiver, I felt really happy with that decision. And I could have gone Crowell, but I had so many running backs already. And I was also eyeing Eckler, so I was looking at how many bench spots. There, I mean, you see somebody get Jimmy Garoppolo around 14, which is an absolute steal. Actually, when I was looking at Cousins, it was between Cousins and Garoppolo. And I'm glad I didn't get Garoppolo now, even though there is a possibility he might have a better year than Cousins, because then I would have had 3 Niners starting. So if the Niners clunk for 1 week, I'm screwed. So I don't like getting too many players. And actually, I lied too. I went Baltimore's defense, and the reason I went Baltimore's defense, I was looking at Eckler these last couple rounds, because I said he's one of the guys that I really target. And wow, Crowell around 14, what a steal. But in a position where there's very few, and this is why I went Burton so early, and to me it wasn't really early, maybe 1 round early in round 6, was because defenses and tight ends is 2 positions where there's very few elite guys or players or teams, whatever. So tight ends, there's about 5 really elite tight ends. You got Olsen, and he's question mark. You got Gronk, you got Ertz, you got Kelsey. And I think Burton's right up there with those guys. Rudolph, and he tends to get injured. So I absolutely love Trey Burton, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to, as you see here, round 15, I'm going Eckler finally. He slipped. I love it. I think anybody who's a Gordon owner needs to own him. And then going back to my previous pick in round 14, the Baltimore pick, there's like 5 defenses that could be really dominant. And that's the Jags, the Rams, And I think Baltimore was the second best defense last year, and they might be better than the Rams. The Rams, I don't know. Everybody's paid, everybody's happy, but they're at least the top 3 defense, and then everybody else is like a crapshoot. I guess Chicago, now that they have Khalil Mack, could be kind of like a juggernaut. But Houston Texans with what's his name, Clowney and J.J. Watt can do some damage, but they were so bad last year, so we don't know what they're going to do. So Baltimore, to me, I have them ranked as my second best defense. Very happy I was able to get elite defense. Don't have to worry about plugging them in and out, because usually that's a position I stream. Here's round 16. I was thinking about going kicker, but I do this a lot in my leagues, and this is kind of like a Sports Libs trick. You guys should try this. Is I don't draft a kicker. I think kickers are unpredictable, and what I do is I draft another player. I absolutely love Christian Kirk, and I'm going to hold him. I'm going to test him out. Who knows? Last year, I think the last couple years, the guy who picked DJ first, DJ got injured first half. Allen Robinson, I think I picked him last year, and he got injured like the first play of the game. So right then and there, by not selecting a kicker, I just dropped Robinson and picked up a kicker, and then I didn't have to drop, whatever quality player. In this case would be Christian Kirk. So I like to do that, or if I'm getting blown out or if I'm blowing out the other team, I might not even need to start a kicker. So kicker is, I always do that every single year. I get an extra player, especially if there's a talented player on the board left, like a Christian Kirk. But there you have it, guys. A recap of my draft. It's I think I did very well. I know a lot of you guys agree with me. There's a couple of people that don't agree with me, but I was very happy the way things turned out, especially after what happened with Antonio Brown and the auto pick. All right, guys, so that wraps up this video. I hope you got some useful information in the way I draft and my thinking. If you did, give me a like. I appreciate it. Drop a comment if you have any questions. And my next draft is a 12-team PPR. Make sure to check that out YouTube Live.